In a land under colonial rule, where freedom was a dream and justice seemed far away, one man rose from humble beginnings. From selling firewood on the dusty streets of Ikenne to walking the halls of London's great institutions, his journey was not just his own. It was the story of a nation longing to be free. He faced betrayal, conspiracy, and even the weight of prison walls. Yet he never gave up. This is not just history. This is the making of a leader. This is the story of vision, courage, and sacrifice. This is the path to Nigeria's freedom. Chapter 5. The Birth of a Political Giant. Upon his return to Nigeria in 1947, Awolowo found the country in a state of growing political unrest. Nigerians were becoming more vocal about their desire for independence from British colonial rule. However, there was no clear structure or leadership to guide this movement. Determined to change this, he founded the Egbe Omo Oduduwa in 1948, an organization aimed at promoting Yoruba unity, cultural development, and political awareness. This was his first step toward becoming a political force in Nigeria. His law practice flourished in Ibadan, and he quickly became known as a defender of the common people. But politics was his true calling. In 1951, he took a bold step and founded the Action Group, AG, a political party dedicated to progressive ideas. The Action Group was different from other parties at the time. It had a clear vision: regional autonomy, free education, free healthcare, and economic modernization. Awolowo had studied how countries like the United States and India had developed, and he believed Nigeria needed a federal system to succeed. His ideas resonated with the people. In the 1951 elections, the Action Group won a majority in the Western region, and Awolowo became the leader of government business. This was the first major political victory of his career. By 1954, he was appointed the first premier of the Western region, making him the most powerful Yoruba politician in Nigeria. But he was not interested in power for its own sake. He had a mission to transform the Western region into the most advanced part of Nigeria. He wasted no time. The Awolowo Revolution was about to begin. Chapter 6. The Free Education Movement. As premier of the Western region, Awolowo's #1 priority was education. He believed that ignorance was the greatest enemy of progress. In 1955, he launched the first ever free primary education program in Africa. This was a groundbreaking move. No other African leader had attempted such a massive education policy before. His critics said it was too expensive, that the Western region could not afford it. But Awolowo proved them wrong. He introduced a tax system that ensured the government could fund the program. The results were astonishing. Within a few years, the Western region had the highest literacy rate in Nigeria. More schools were built, and thousands of children who could never afford an education were now sitting in classrooms, learning to read and write. But Awolowo did not stop there. He built the first television station in Africa, WNTV, in 1959, established the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, and expanded healthcare facilities. His vision was clear: a well-educated and healthy population would lead to economic and social progress. And for the first time, the Western region became the most developed part of Nigeria. However, not everyone was happy with his success. Political rivals and enemies began plotting against him, setting the stage for his greatest trial. Chapter 7. The Making of an Opposition Leader. By 1959, Obafemi Awolowo had transformed the Western region into the most advanced part of Nigeria. His policies on education, healthcare, and industrialization had set a new standard for governance. However, his influence was not welcomed by all. Nigeria was preparing for independence, and political power struggles intensified. The British colonial government had structured the country in a way that favored the northern region, which had a larger population and more political leverage. Awolowo's Action Group, AG, faced stiff competition from the Northern People's Congress, NPC, led by Ahmadu Bello, and the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, NCNC, led by Nnamdi Azikiwe. The AG was strongest in the west, while the NPC dominated the north, and the NCNC was popular in the east. As the 1959 general elections approached, Awolowo had his eyes set on becoming Nigeria's first prime minister. However, the NPC, with British backing, formed an alliance with the NCNC, sidelining the AG. Tafawa Balewa was appointed prime minister, and Awolowo became the leader of the opposition in the federal parliament. This was a major setback, but Awolowo refused to be discouraged. He saw opposition as an opportunity to keep the government accountable and to push for progressive policies at the national level. But his political enemies had other plans that would lead to his greatest triumph. Chapter 8: Political Betrayal and Conspiracy. As the 1960s began, Awolowo's political struggles deepened. The NPC-led federal government saw him as a threat. His economic and social policies had made the western region more advanced than the north, and this created tension between the regions. Within the action group, cracks began to appear. Some of his closest allies, including Samuel Ladoke Akintala, the deputy premier of the western region, began to oppose him. Akintala believed that the AG should align with the NPC, while Awolowo insisted on maintaining a strong opposition stance. This disagreement escalated into a full-blown political crisis. In 1962, the federal government, led by Tafawa Balewa, declared a state of emergency in the western region. Awolowo was accused of plotting to overthrow the government, and he was arrested and charged with treason. The trial was highly politicized. Many believed it was a conspiracy to eliminate him from Nigerian politics. Despite his brilliant defense, the court found him guilty, and in 1963, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. For a man who had dedicated his life to fighting for Nigeria's progress, this was a crushing blow. But even in prison, he did not lose hope. Chapter 9: The Prison Years. Awolowo was sent to Calabar prison, far from his home and family. His enemies thought this would break him, but they underestimated his mental strength. Instead of dwelling on his misfortune, Awolowo used his time in prison wisely. He read extensively, meditated, and planned for the future. He wrote letters to his supporters, encouraging them to remain strong. His wife, Hannah Idu Dideal Awolowo, remained his pillar of support. She visited him regularly, keeping him informed about the political situation in Nigeria. She also managed his affairs, ensuring that his vision for the western region did not die. While Awolowo was in prison, Nigeria was descending into chaos. Corruption increased, political tensions boiled over, and by 1966, the country experienced its first military coup. The coup overthrew the civilian government, and a military regime took control. In 1966, after 3 years in prison, the new military government granted him a pardon, recognizing his value as a national leader. He was released and invited to join the new government. He had lost 3 years of his political career, but he was not done yet. Chapter 10: War and the Role of a Statesman. By the time Awolowo was released, Nigeria was on the brink of civil war. Tensions between the regions had escalated, and by 1967, the eastern region, led by Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, declared independence as Biafra, leading to the Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970. The new head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, recognized Awolowo's economic brilliance and appointed him Federal Commissioner for Finance and Vice Chairman of the Federal Executive Council. It was one of the most difficult times in Nigeria's history. The war drained resources, and the country faced economic collapse. However, under Awolowo's leadership, the government managed the economy efficiently. He introduced strict financial policies that ensured Nigeria could fund the war without borrowing from foreign countries. Despite his role in the government, Awolowo was deeply saddened by the suffering of the Nigerian people, especially in the eastern region. The war caused famine, and he pushed for humanitarian aid, but political constraints limited what he could do. When the war ended in 1970, Awolowo urged reconciliation and rebuilding, but his political ambitions were not over. He wanted to lead Nigeria once more. Chapter 11: Presidential Ambitions and Political Setbacks. In 1979, Nigeria returned to civilian rule, and Awolowo saw another opportunity to lead the country. He formed the Unity Party of Nigeria, UPN, and ran for president in the elections. His campaign was built on 4 key programs: free education, free healthcare, rural development, massive industrialization. His message resonated with many Nigerians, but once again, political forces worked against him. The election was controversial, and Shehu Shagari of the National Party of Nigeria, NPN, was declared the winner. Awolowo rejected the results, calling them rigged. He challenged the outcome in court, but the verdict did not favor him. Once again, he was forced to step back, but his influence in Nigerian politics remained strong. In 1983, he ran again, but the elections were marred by widespread rigging and violence. He lost once more, and the military soon took over the government in a coup. At this point, Awolowo began to withdraw from active politics. But his legacy was already secured. Chapter 12: The Final Years and Everlasting Legacy. By the late 1980s, Chief Obafemi Awolowo had become an elder statesman, respected by all. He spent his final years in Ikenne, where he continued to write and advise younger politicians. On May 9, 1987, Obafemi Awolowo passed away at the age of 78. His death marked the end of an era, but his impact on Nigeria remained. Today, he is remembered as one of the greatest leaders Nigeria has ever produced. His contributions to education, politics, and economic development continue to shape the country. The University of Ife was renamed Obafemi Awolowo University in his honor, and his vision of a prosperous Nigeria lives on. Though he never became Nigeria's president, his ideas, policies, and leadership set a standard for generations to come. He proved that with vision, discipline, and courage, one man could change a nation. His story remains an inspiration, not just for Nigerians, but for all who believe in the power of determination and service to humanity. Thank you so much for watching. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. We love hearing your thoughts. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more powerful African stories of courage, wisdom, and history. See you in the next episode.